G'day internet friends. It happens to be the 13th of July 2026. Yes, my name is George and I love to tell you today's message of hope. Today I want to talk about chicken. That lovely two-winged creature. Think of a chicken sitting in a pot of boiling water. And then of course nothing. What am I talking about? Well, the stove's off, no bubbles, and no steam rolling out. Yep, just a pot sitting there for 20 minutes doing as far as you can tell. Absolutely nothing. Now why am I talking about this? Yes, of course. That's the hag Nagi Maehashi has been sharing this week. She says, leave the chicken breast in boiled water with the heat off. And apparently it comes out juicier than anything you get standing over a pan. I reckon that's true because I've done it before. Now, she's not exactly a small name in this country, Australia. You see, I didn't even know about her, but my ex-colleague won't stop talking about her when he was in the office. Oh, let me check out her latest recipe. That's what he says. Even one of the ladies at church has a Nagi cookbook sitting on her shelf, on a kitchen bench to be accurate, like it's scripture in his own right. Unbelievable. But well done, Nagi, because I think she was working in the finance background as well, but she started a blog 14 years ago perhaps, and just went absolute bananas. So well done to you. And here's what struck me watching that pot doing nothing for 20 minutes. You see, it's not really about a story about the chicken today. Sorry about that. It's a story about the moment you found out you've been doing something wrong the whole time and nobody told you at all. Nobody. I'm going to tell you, mine was about starch. Yes, for years, whenever a recipe called for a cornstarch slurry, I mixed it with warm water. I think that's what my mum did. I can't remember. Sometimes hot water even, straight from the kettle if I was in a hurry. And every single time there appeared to be lumps. I thought that was a normal, common thing to do. You know, lumps, the little uncooked knots sitting in what's supposed to be a silky sauce. I just assumed that was the nature of starch. Yeah, it's temperamental, nothing to be done about it. Well, George, it turns out you mix it with cold water every single time, so there'll be no lump. Yeah, I learned that from the cooking class. No lumps. So I've been fighting a problem for years that had a one-word solution nobody had ever told me. And that's the thing about stewardship, because we tend to think of it as the big categories. Yes, money, property, maybe even time, if we're being generous. But stewardship shows up in the small and glamorous competencies too. Whether we're actually still willing to get better at the ordinary things other people depend on us for, or whether we quietly decided years ago that we learned enough. What do you think, guys? Put in your comments. Now, the Apostle Peter writes about this. You find it in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. Listen to this. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Now, Peter's writing to a church about spiritual gifts here. So don't misunderstand, all right? Those spiritual gifts are prophecy, teaching, hospitality. The gifts that hold a congregation together. Absolutely. And that's the primary picture you see. But I don't think it's a stretch to say the principle underneath it is bigger than that list. You see, every gift, however small, however unglamorous, it's on loan. Let me explain. On loan, and it's meant to serve somebody. Even a gift as modest as knowing how to mix starch properly, if I can say so. I found that out properly this year, you see. I never expected at my stage of my life, never in my stretch of imagination, to enroll in a cooking course. let alone end up working in food services at an aged care facility. Somehow that landed me in a commercial kitchen learning things I avoided my whole life. Yeah, my two brothers worked in their own cafe restaurant. I guess I was the black sheep. Well, one of the trickiest was a modified tofu and egg dish for elderly residents. Everyone had to choose a recipe, so I thought I would invent that one. So egg and tofu, right? Because it's got softer texture, full protein, and should be easy to swallow. I steamed it a full hour, convinced it wasn't going to set, so I was panicking. It was pretty much watery, right? It couldn't even get to looking like a custard. Anyway, the head chef, Felicity, God bless you, stepped in, made a couple of adjustments, and poured it together. Phew! She saved the day of that dish. That was a close call. Now, the other one I didn't get to fix myself. I was carrying a full tray of croissant. I think it was a Friday morning at work. Now, that batch meant for that morning's breakfast service. And somehow I tipped the entire thing onto the floor when I was pushing the trolley, right? Can you imagine the look on my face? Shock, horror. Every single one of those, well, most of it anyway, at least half of the tray of croissant fell on the floor, and you betcha every one of them straight to the bin. I stood there and didn't move for a second. Residents were going to start coming through in minutes, yeah? Expecting breakfast, and there was now a gap in that breakfast that I had caused. You can't blame supply, you can't blame bad luck, but you can certainly blame me. And I remember doing the maths in my head, how long to get more, whether there was time, whether anyone would notice one item missing from a tray, meant for people who earned the right, because they pay the bills, after a whole lifetime to do something as small as a warm croissant in the morning. There wasn't a version of that moment where I felt fine about it. No. And by the way, if any part of today's episode has you thinking about your own version of that tray, perhaps something you dropped that you've never quite owned up to, stick around. Yeah, hit the subscribe button, and I'll keep bringing you more of these. And don't forget putting your comment if you had such unfortunate events. Back to the story, yeah? My manager didn't say much. She just went and baked another tray. Because time is of essence, right? So there was no lecture, no mention of it at the next shift. She was great. She covered a gap I created and moved on like it hadn't cost her anything, even though it clearly did. Her morning got harder because mine went wrong. So friends, what's the tray you dropped and never told anyone about? The mistake somebody else quietly absorbed so you didn't have to carry it. Yeah, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. I hope you hear that differently. The grace in that verse isn't only what you're meant to give out. Sometimes it's what it covers you when you drop the tray. Like me. So the croissant went in the bin. My manager baked another one without a word. Yeah, great. Thanks again, Mal. Okay, and that's today's message of hope. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in tomorrow's video. God bless you all.